Hi and welcome. Here we're going to talk a little bit about how to talk about things that you have. I'm sure that you in conversation, it's one of the easy things to talk about. So maybe you're asking yourself, well, how do I ask what somebody has, or how do I talk about what I have? So that's what we're going to look at today. And possession, having things in Tibetan, is a little bit different than what we think of in English. Construction is a little bit different. So we're going to just walk through it carefully and I'll explain as we go. So um, if you're not following the Tibetan script writing, you can look back at my earlier videos about reading the alphabet. So let's have a look. The word for you is kerang, and that is spelled ka. Oh, I make sure I have my Tibetan keyboard on. Ka, yata, kya, dengbu, ke, ta, ke, and then we put our tsek to end the syllable. Rang with a tsek. So kerang. La. And then we'll use an example. Okay, pugu. Pa shabchu pu. Ka shabchu ku. Ya naru yo ta yu. Pa, oops. Pa sa pe. And then we put a she at the end. So we have ke rang la pu gu yu be. So what is each part doing here? Kerang, or you self, yourself. La is a very ubiquitous particle. So what is a ubiquitous means? You find it all the time. It's there all the time, everywhere. It's in many, many, many sentences because it basically means to. Normally, it's sort of pointing at the person who's doing the action or the thing that's doing the action, so the subject. So kerang la. So to you, pugu is child or children. I think I mentioned that generally speaking, there's no marker for plural. So to just say the word child, children, typically you assume that it's plural unless it's indicated otherwise. So pugu, children in general. Ye, ye is usually, I mean, the basic translation of ye is to exist. But in this context, we think of it as have. So ye, and then pe is the question marker. So kerang, you, two, children, pugu, ye, be. So the way this works is a little bit, if you think in English um, of the construction a little bit more like as for you, or in your possession, or at your disposal, this kind of at in kind of idea. So um, something like children exist at you, or children exist as for you, something like this. So you can think of it as to you are there children. I mean, in general, the only easy way to think about it in English is do you have children? But if you try to think in English by saying do you have children, you won't find an easy way to express yourself in Tibetan saying that. This is the way that you have to start to just sort of change the way that you think about the structure of the idea. So it might be helpful to think of it as children exist with you? Question mark. I think maybe that's the simplest way to go about it. I tend to think about as for you, have children. So I keep this as a have, and then have children. This part is the have children part and the question mark. So as for you, have children? Question mark. That's what I find the easiest to kind of wrap my head around as far as when I want to speak and say something. So, because then you can just substitute different words in the same place and it still makes sense. Anyway, that's a bit to digest, but don't worry about it. We will come back to it. It is a construction that will become familiar. So this is just a brief introduction. So what is the answer to do children exist with you or as for you or do you have children? 계란아 보고 예배? And the answer is 예. This is a little bit like we talked about with yin. So 예 exist in a sort of a more personal sense. So yes, I do have. Yes, they do exist. Yes, I do have in this context. And then you can say nga, oops, nga, la. So again, this saying like to me or with me or as for me, or in my possession somehow, in on at. This la is a very kind of I think it helps to think of it as just a directional word. It's something that's pointing towards the me or pointing towards the you in this case. So ngala pugu pashabju pu kashabju gu and then ngala pugu ye. If you want to practice your counting, you could say nga la pu gu. Pick a number. Sum ye. And if you remember, sum is 3. Chikni sum. Ngala pugu sum ye. I have 3 children. Or there are 3 children with me. There are 3 children in my possession. Something like this. But this, whenever you see this la and ye kind of construction, in English, we just say have. But if you think of in my possession, maybe that's a little bit easier. So you can practice with some other words. So pugu is one, children. Pugu chik, 1 child. Pugu ni, 2 children. Pugu sum, 3 children. Another word is you can practice with is kangba. Kangba. Kangba is a house. Kangba. House. Okay. You might hear it be used for like room, as in this. It's like the space within a room or the space within a house. Also, sometimes I think of it as an edifice because it can be used for lots of different kinds of buildings, even though they're not used as a house, meaning a place where you live and sleep. So it's also, again, a bit flexible. You have to be ready to be flexible with your idea of how Tibetan words work, because many times one simple Tibetan word will cover many, many different nuanced English words. So kangba. So what would you say? You would say ngala kangba ye. If you have 3 houses, you could say ngala kangba sung ye. What's another thing you might ask for? Pen, nyugu. Pen is sa nyata nya shabchu nyu ka nyuk ka shabchu gu, and then we put our she at the end. Nyugu. Pen. Keran la nyugu yube. Kerala nyuguyube. Do you have a pen? Ngala nyuguyu. Or ngala nyugu sumyu. Or you could just say yu. And this is another point. You can say Kerala puguyube. But if you just say puguyube, people will also understand what you mean because you're talking directly to the person. So with you is understood depending on the context. And same thing, if you want to say I have children, ngala puguye, you can also just say puguye, I have children, or have children. Both are perfectly fine because it's clear from the context who you're talking about. Okay, so 강바, 누구, it's okay. Do you have a book? Teb. Teb. A teb is a regular Western book. If you've ever seen a Tibetan style book, you will probably notice it's the sort of the long paper books that are wrapped in cloth. If you want to say Kerala teb yube, you're meaning do you have a regular printed book? Or Kerala pecha yube, pecha. Tao ba dring bukbe cha. That's the wrapped up Tibetan book, pecha. Kerala pecha yube, ye, ngala pecha ye. And maybe you don't have a book or you don't have children. So how do you answer or ask somebody in the negative? And also you can ask the negative form of the question in the same way. So, Kerala kayata kya ringbu ke ta ke ranga rang la. So with you or in your possession. The possession comes later. Kerala. Let's say, okay, Teb, since we've got it there on the screen, Teb. And then if you want to ask, don't you have a book? Don't you have a book? Me. Be. Oops. Sorry. Be. Me be. So this me is the negative form of ye. So ye, to exist or to have, here means to not exist. To not exist in my possession. So a book does not exist in my possession. This is kind of the way that you can think about it. So Kerala teb mebe, don't you have a book? Don't you have a book? Kerala teb mebe. Or you could say Kerala pecha mebe, don't you have a pecha? And then the answer, again similar to the other earlier positive sentence, me. No, I don't. Or no, it does not exist in my possession. Me. Nga la teb me. So if you compare, oops, ngala pugu ye, ngala pugu or teb me. I don't have a book. Or a book does not exist in my possession, and the possession is implied by this construction. So I know this is a little bit twisted, but just remember ye and me mean both to exist and to have in this context. So ngala pugu ye, I have children. Ngala teb ye, I have a book. Ngala pugu me, I don't have children. Ngala teb me, I don't have a book or many books. Many books is sort of implied, but this is, again, depending on the context, you can make your best guess. So do some practice, find some new words, and go through these constructions a few times until they become comfortable, and talk about what you actually have. A couple more things that you can try on your own. I'll give you a few more words to practice with. So, okay, here. Ka yata kya gigu ki. A ki is a dog, so you can practice your sentences with dog. And shi mi. Shimi is cat. So I hope you find this useful. Please listen again if you need to.